Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So,
One Piece chapter 1108 is out. If you guys haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. Now that you have, let's begin. At this point, Oda cannot help himself. Another week passes, another banger chapter. Oda is in the zone. If you guys are patient and make it to the end of this video, I've got a pretty cool speculation for you. I've been holding on to it for years. I really enjoyed the emphasis on the Marine Vice Admirals in the chapter. You guys can already tell, just based on what's going on, that man, it really does feel like Enies Lobby. Straw Hats trying to escape from a government island. They have giants for allies. The government has aimed the Buster Call at their own things, and it's ongoing. Boss fights are slowing them down, but they basically already have what they need and they just need to leave. But the path out isn't 100% clear. But for me, comparing the two arcs, the Vice Admirals here are just far more interesting. And in a way, I think that Oda has captured a little bit of the feeling of Ohara just because it seems like there's uncertainty. In Enies Lobby, right, the Vice Admirals knew what they needed to do. They knew the assignment. And characters like Onigumo, who sort of highlighted that group, were willing to sacrifice anything. In Ohara, however, you had this contrast between Akainu and Aokiji. For the Marines, the Buster Call in Ohara was difficult to stomach. But here in Egghead, you have a kind of split. You have Vice Admiral Tosa, who's just gung-ho. He's ready to go. Admiral Guillotine is totally sold that Vegapunk is a traitor. But then on the other hand, you have some feeling of hesitation. I'm not sure how much hesitation, but I got that impression from Bluegrass, from Hound, or Doll. Especially Doll. I want to talk more about her in a moment. But there's this slight feeling that they're trying to process what is going on here on the fly. Because the reality is even if Vegapunk is actually a traitor, and they 100% fully believe that, attacking Egghead is still going backwards. The Pacifista are supposed to be their weapons. Now they must destroy them. And because they are so powerful and useful, they can't even effectively do this. So I guess I just really like this. The Vice Admirals don't feel generically background bad guys. Oda has designed them as and treats them as individuals. And I think that this may end up being important. It's more important to characterize the Vice Admirals here in Egghead than it was in Enies Lobby, because they might end up having a decision to make. So the first step is a change in plans. Don't target the Pacifista because that's not going well anyway. Target Jewelry Bonnie. Breaking her control would be valuable. So we see Tosa do this with a 10-fingered Shigan, which is honestly really cool. I almost would want that to have been a Lucci power, but maybe we're past that point. But you see this and it's immediately kind of scary, like, whoa man, this Vice Admiral might actually do something, and then whah, the Giants of Elff. Tosa is now a pancake. Frankly guys, you knew this was going to happen. Elbaf is next, probably, right? And the island of Elbaf and the Giants of Elbaf are hyped up as like this incredibly strong force that Big Mom could have utilized in order to become Pirate Queen. One of the few islands in the world that the world government has not been able to mess with for hundreds of years despite probably trying. Like they actually say in the chapter, giants are no joke. We know that there's a finite number of giants that are actually working for the Marines, and many of these have attained Vice Admiral rank, meaning it is much easier for somebody of the giant race to be strong enough to become a Vice Admiral. It really makes you think about where Dory and Brogy are in terms of the power scaling food chain. These are individuals that fought every day for 100 straight years. Are they as strong as the strongest Vice Admirals? Are they some level above that, but below Admirals? Basically, would it take an Admiral in order to defeat them in one-on-one combat? Honestly though, I am still praying that we see giants in Elbaf that have consumed really powerful devil fruit. Essentially a character or some characters which wouldn't look out of place as Yonko commanders, or above. Anyway, I thought it was hilarious that when Dory and Brogy encountered Frankie and his group that they were like, well, we checked all the bounty posters of the new members to be sure that you guys are strats or not, but none of you guys are familiar. Then I remember that Frankie's bounty poster is literally the Thousand Sunny. Poor guy. Also, can we just take a moment to appreciate that when you have the giants on your side, their energy is unmatched. It's a literal Buster Call going on right now, and if you looked at them, you would never be able to tell. They are totally within their element. And that's also another part of Elbaf that I'm excited for. If you go all the way back to Water 7 and Frankie, how he obtained Adam's Wood from the Treasure Tree Adam, which seems likely to be on Elbaf, he described the country where Adam's Wood is found as a war-torn country, a country in constant war. Yet no matter what happens there, the tree remains. As we've seen it so far, the village of Elbaf has been shown as being almost ideal and peaceful, but I really doubt that that's the case. And I really think that once we actually get there, the giants strolling into a Buster Call carefree is going to make a lot of sense to us. But anyway, Oda left us some things to chew over with the Giants of Elbaf in the chapter. Bonnie tells them that Luffy, Sanji, and Vegapunk are still back there, and Brogy leans in and says, wow, those names take me back. And then Dory says, Vegapunk, he's the one that scholar mentioned, right? The word scholar here is probably in reference to the scholars of Ohara, all of which, with the exception of Robin, are thought dead. But maybe not. I think that there are 3 ways to look at this, but to really give this discussion depth, we gotta talk for a while. Firstly, it's highly implied that Jaguar D. Saul survived the Buster Call. Jaguar D. Saul is not a scholar of Ohara, but Vegapunk collected all of the books, returned them to Elbaf. Maybe Jaguar D. Saul made himself into a scholar of Ohara, sort of adopted the title. I think that this is probably the most likely theory. When talking about this scholarly character, we need to also talk about the man marked by flames. And I also think that Jaguar D. Saul is the most likely candidate to be the man marked by flames, at least on the surface. He's marked by flames because he was scorched by the Buster Call in Ohara. He took an interest in these scholars' research because he was there in Ohara. It isn't because of this research that he has become famous and knowledgeable enough about the poneglyphs that Eustace Kid is seeking him out in Elbaf. But despite saying this, Saul being the man marked by flames and the scholar that Dory and Brogy are referring to in the chapter is just really obvious, potentially too obvious. We get more about the man marked by flames in a flashback of when Aokiji joins the Blackbeard Pirates. Aokiji is talking about his scars, his battle with Akainu, and it just reminds Katarina Devon of like, hey, do you know anything about the burn scar dude? Blackbeard then explains that they know where 2 road poneglyphs are. Kaido has one, Big Mom has one, but the other 2 they don't know, but one is said to be held by the man with the burn scar. Then Lafitte goes on to say they say he rides an all-black ship that swallows enemies into a gigantic vortex if they should wander too close. Perhaps it's a devil fruit. And even in this scene, Oda kind of telegraphs that we should be thinking about Saul. Obviously, Aokiji was the one to save Saul in Ohara. And then after Aokiji heard this from the Blackbeard Pirate, what is his first thought? Well, it's Saul. So at the very least, Jaguar D. Saul is clearly intended to be a red herring for the identity of the man marked by flames. It is by far the thing that you can justify the most. But in that same vein, you can almost use this to argue that it makes Saul less likely. And certainly I don't think the theory is perfect. While it's cool to think that Jaguar D. Saul was inspired by the scholars of Ohara enough to become a scholar himself, is he really capable of becoming a scholar? Is this character that the Blackbeard Pirates are describing, riding a black ship, vortexes, guarding one of the 4 road poneglyphs, one of the most sought after things in the entire world, does that feel like Saul to you? It could be, of course, but I think the more that you think about it, the more it feels like there's holes here. Maybe the scholar that the Giants are referring to here is actually different from the man marked by flames. It's an intuitive connection, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the case. But in my mind, Saul is more likely to be the scholar than he is to be the man marked by flames. Just simply because Saul being a scholar could be partly truth and could also be a great joke. Whereas Saul being the protector of the 4th road poneglyph is an incredible feat of not just knowledge, but also probably strength. Another really popular character to speculate as the man marked by flames is somebody like Scopper Gabon. From a strength standpoint, knowledge standpoint, a member of Gold D. Rogers' crew spread out across the Grand Line, seemingly holding important positions in places. Scopper Gabon, that way, makes a lot of sense. But then again, if Scopper Gabon was this character, first off, how did he get burn scars? And then second, why doesn't anybody recognize him for who he is as a very, very notorious pirate? Long story short is I think that Oda has the potential to pull one on us here. But the man marked by flames wasn't actually mentioned in this chapter. Instead, we just got this scholar. Who knows Vegapunk? The second way to speculate this is that maybe one of the actual scholars of Ohara survived. Maybe one of them wasn't on the island. Or maybe Saul managed to rescue somebody. Guys, I may just end up making a full theory video about this because I have some connections that I would like to share. That being said, there is actually a possibility that somebody like Nico Olvia survived, rescued by Saul. When we don't literally see a character die and their gravestone, the possibility exists that they are not dead. That being said, in part, this would be disappointing because if Nico Olvia is alive, you would have liked her to seek out Nico Robin. Also, if the Giants were familiar with Nico Olvia, then you would have probably some kind of foreshadowing of like, well, you can't wait to meet Robin, you know? There'd be something, we'd see something, I think. But if a scholar is actually alive, you would expect them to be a character that was highlighted during Ohara, right? So we're talking about Clover, Nico Olvia, and that's pretty much it. Possibly Nico Robin's father, but that's a bit of a shot in the dark as well. So the third possibility is there is a new scholar of Ohara created from a new character who's been studying Ohara's research in Elbaf. Essentially, you can't ever rule out the possibility that Oda will utilize this opportunity in order to introduce a new arc-specific character. But these are my three possibilities. I think the most likely is just Saul, and it could in fact be a gag. Like, does Saul make sense as a scholar, regardless of what has happened? I don't know about that. But when Oda can make us laugh, he will. My second guess would be a new arc-specific character. My third guess would be Nico Ovia, unable to reunite with Robin because the government is after her. And for some reason, Oda chose not to foreshadow the connection between Robin and, for instance, the Giants here or Vegapunk during this entire arc, knowing that her mother is still alive. But of course, there's still more to chew over. The Giants are heading to the ship and they ask, where are the others? And they are told in the lab above the clouds. A Giant then responds. His first thought is, on a sky island? No, not exactly. But I believe that this is close to confirming that the Giants live in the sky, on Sky Islands, like the fable of Jack and the Giant Beanstalk. Guys, remember the Sky Islands themselves are supposed to be fables, like not everybody knows that they actually exist. Fable spelled backwards is Elbaf. When the Straw Hats visited Skypiea, Gonfal tells us there's actually a normal way to visit the Sky Islands. The Knock Upstream is not that way. In Elbaf, we see this giant tree. I've long speculated that climbing the giant tree is the normal way that you would reach the Sky Islands. So yeah, this is a small step towards confirming that theory. The Giants are very much familiar with the concept of Sky Islands. But yeah, this all brings us to the end of the chapter, which was just so absurdly hype. Saturn is now transformed into his full beast form, a creepy spider. Any resemblance of humanity is gone. His body is covered with this poison which seems to disintegrate anything that it touches. It's him and Kizaru versus Luffy and Sanji, but Sanji needs to protect Vegapunk. Man, where do we even start with this? Let's just get Saturn out of the way. Something very strange is occurring with Saturn, and it's specifically pointed out as a Chekhov's gun. In the chapter, Sanji tells us that there is a strange look in his eye. Maybe some might speculate that Saturn now has Imu's ringed eyes, but we actually see the eyes and I don't really think that that's the case. Although that would be incredible fodder for theories. To me, just straight up, the look in his eyes just seems like that of a beast, as if Saturn is no longer thinking at all. He's moving based on pure destructive intuition. And I think this feeling is exacerbated just simply because we don't see Saturn actually speak in the chapter at all. No matter what happens, he does not talk. And another human thing which he also does not do is his expression never changes. Like with his eyes being the way that they are, I feel like I'm looking at a fish. So regardless of whether he possesses Imu eyes or not, I mean, we've already speculated this in previous videos. I'll go ahead and leave one as a link in the description. It's one of my better ones recently, but it's like, can Imu remotely control the Gorosei? Because right now, people are knocking on Saturn's door, and it sure as hell does not seem like anybody is home. Brain empty. Honestly, the last time that we encountered a Zone who resembles this in any way is pre-timeskip Monster Point Chopper. Is it possible that Saturn has not awakened his devil fruit, and instead has achieved this awakening like Chopper via science? Saturn is in fact a scientist. Some sort of similar technology has left him in a state just like pre-timeskip Monster Point, not entirely in control. But yeah, I felt the need to throw this out there just because there is some similarity, but I think that too many people won't like this. I think we'd all just prefer if Saturn was legitimately awakened, given that he's most probably a very ancient being, and any way that you could possibly take this, like, why wouldn't he just be awake? I have wondered if this is some kind of new unrevealed technique, like giving into the soul of the devil makes you stronger. It's just interesting to compare with Luffy, who is actually awakened, and he says the more that he laughs, the stronger he gets. I presume laughing is a quality of Nika itself. The more Luffy laughs, the more he is truly like Nika. And going back to Wano, when Luffy first awakened, he said, I can't stop laughing, as if he is trying and failing. So I think that there's at least a somewhat compelling argument that the more that you give in to the devil fruit as an awakened user, the stronger you become. That could be fitting here. But regardless, something very strange is going on here with Saturn. And we've said that about Saturn from pretty much the moment that he appeared on Egghead. Remember the pentacle? There is no doubt that Oda is doing something unique with Saturn, his existence, maybe his devil fruit, something. The theory that we had before is that Saturn might be an actual devil unbound from the fruit. Do you guys think that this is evidence or not? At the same time, speculating that this power in some way makes Saturn stronger is also kind of harder in the chapter itself, because Luffy has gone gear 5th. Kizaru kicked Sanji and then attacked Vegapunk. We'll come back to him in a moment. And then Luffy grabs them both Kizaru and Vegapunk, in one of the most flames panels of the entire series. We already knew that Luffy was strong, but damn. It feels like a parent disciplining his children. I find it hard to believe that Luffy is actually going to defeat them both simultaneously, especially I don't think that he's going to defeat Saturn like this. It doesn't feel right. But at the same time, maybe he just can. Regardless, I definitely feel as if this arc is coming to a conclusion. Luffy tells both Kizaru and Saturn that, you know, I'm not letting you escape, right? And I almost take this to mean that Luffy, as he has them in his hands, is not letting go. Guys, is it just me, or is Luffy about to gigantic Gomu Gomu UFO and yeet Kizaru and Saturn out of the stratosphere? Because that's what I feel like is gonna happen. I guess we'll see. It's kind of an anticlimactic end for Saturn, but like, let's be honest, over the last several chapters, Saturn's very existence has been anticlimactic. From the very moment that Kuma arrived, this dude is just getting washed repeatedly. Even as we also honestly acknowledge that he probably hasn't taken any real damage. Basically, he is just accomplishing nothing. Maybe it's because of that I already feel like this battle is over and almost feel ready to move on. You know, is that fair or not? Is Oda going to bring this back to a legitimate battle? I just don't see it. But yeah, with Kizu, there is so much more to say, I feel like. You guys will know, we've thought for a long time that Kizu might potentially flip sides in this battle, but here we are at the end, and instead, he shoots Vegapunk. The first thing that I have to say is that regardless of Kizu doing this, you already know from everything in this arc that this is not something that he wanted and most probably didn't feel good about it. His commitment to his duty trumped what it is that he personally wanted. You guys know how the chapter read. You saw what was on the page, right? You know what you're supposed to think. Kizu killed Vegapunk. But I suppose it is time for Contrarian JB to return. In my opinion, Vegapunk was already dead. He said this himself. If you attempt to move him, internal bleeding, he would die. So what was even the point of Kizu shooting him with a laser beam? It was unnecessary. Is it just symbolic? I do not think that it is a coincidence that Kizu's laser beam went through Vegapunk in the same place as Saturn's talon. And then immediately after this occurs, Kizu is conveniently captured by Luffy. Basically, I think that it's possible that Kizu could have been attempting to save Vegapunk by cauterizing his wound. This is an actual medical technique used to stop bleeding, otherwise known as hemorrhaging. In the last chapter, as Kizu aimed a laser at Vegapunk and Bonnie, he closed his eyes just before doing so. You can almost faintly see a tear. We don't actually see his eyes in this chapter, but it feels like suddenly he's so much more motivated. How can that possibly make any sense? And I think it's because he thought he could save Vegapunk. He actually wanted the Strats to rescue him and for him to survive. So a laser through his already existing wound, which 100% was about to kill him anyway. So that's my interpretation of this scene. I really hope that we get some kind of confirmation. That's all I really ask for. One way or the other, we know for sure what is going on here. But in his typical weaponized incompetence way, you know, it seems like he's on the enemy side, but is in fact helping the good guys the entire time. I still wouldn't put it past Kizu to have been the one to deliver Luffy his food, even though people think it could be the Blackbeard pirates. Like, Kizu is still an option, trying to save Vegapunk, making it look like he's trying to kill Vegapunk, and then afterwards getting easily captured by Luffy. I'm still dying on this hill. This, in my opinion, is a perfect way to end the arc for Kizaru. He has chosen his side. It's just not obvious. But of course, we're left with the question of, will Vegapunk survive or not, or has he literally died in the chapter? My opinion is that Vegapunk has died. Even though Kizu attempted to save him, he could not. As this occurred, he smiles. The reason I think this is that we have to question how and why Vegapunk's message started. Did he press a button that was simply on his person? If that was the case, he could have pressed it at any moment. Why choose this one? He could have pressed it from the moment that the world government declared him their enemy, and they attacked Egghead. In my opinion, Vegapunk is a surprisingly honest scientist. Despite having the capability of betraying the world government at any point in time, he really just set like moral boundaries. Bonnie could have lived her entire life without knowledge that she controlled the Pacifista, had the government not used the Pacifista to attack her. Likewise, the world government might never have found out that Vegapunk removed the bomb from Kuma, had they never pressed the button. So in the same way, I think that Vegapunk's message, revealing the truth of the world to the people, only triggers when Vegapunk the Stella himself dies. That was the condition. And in fact, I think that Vegapunk wanted this. That's why he didn't want the Strats to take him away. He said, there's something on this island that I must protect. We're obviously thinking about the ancient robot, but he wasn't in a state to protect anything. Maybe the logic is that I have to die here before Egghead itself is destroyed. By doing this, Vegapunk is protecting his message, allowing the failsafe to trigger. It's just a fascinating concept, right? The best way to protect something is to die, so that its purpose can be fulfilled. And in this, Vegapunk's destiny has kind of become one and the same as Kuma's, right? Like, Kuma's accomplishing all this stuff here and now, without his consciousness, he's effectively already died. Likewise, Vegapunk is about to change the world. It is fitting for him to do so after he has passed. So that's my thoughts on this. But as for Vegapunk's message itself, what is he going to reveal? I just think that he's going to reveal the truth, everything that he knows, all of it. The knowledge contained within Vegapunk himself and Egghead is symbolically the same as the knowledge of Ohara, or the poneglyphs. This arc is the what-if inverted version of Ohara. The government shot Clover before he could reveal the name of the ancient kingdom, and now the government will fail, and this knowledge will be revealed. Guys, we are about to find out the name of the ancient kingdom. I'm almost certain of it. It's honestly a little much for me. But once again, it's just amazing that we could have speculated this all along. I have been talking about inversions between arcs and Egghead for the last year and a half, if not longer. And the arcs that we've specifically compared to Egghead the most are Enies Lobby, Sabaody, and Ohara. So twisting the end of Ohara and utilizing it in the conclusion of Egghead was always a very strong theory that we just never speculated. But here we are and it's seemingly happening. But it's also a little bit different. What I mean by this is Clover never seemed to have any inkling as to why the world can't know the name of the ancient kingdom. I presume that the same thing would be true of Vegapunk. He would just rattle this off. There's an ancient kingdom a long time ago. It's got a name. I'm just gonna tell you guys. I don't think that Clover ever thought that if this information was revealed, the world would riot, the dangerous things would occur. You know what I mean? It's pretty much everything else that Vegapunk knows that's gonna inspire a global war. He probably has more dirt on the government than anybody else that exists. And so in this way, this reminds me of the true Rio poneglyph. It's more than Clover and the scholars of Ohara and their little snapshots of a history lost, lacking context. Vegapunk actually knows the full history. It's just not the history of the past, it's the history of the present. And just the same as when the One Piece is found, Vegapunk's history will likely turn the world upside down. Bro, I'm getting shivers. But believe it or not, this finally takes us back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of this review, right? The Vice Admirals are here. They seem so much more characterized than the Vice Admirals in Enies Lobby because I think that they may have a choice to make. I don't know precisely what is going on here. I just assume that while everybody in the world is hearing Vegapunk's message, so too will the people actually participating in the Battle of Egghead. How will they react to this knowledge? I personally think that some might stop fighting. Characters like Doll. When Vegapunk tells this story, I think that there's no chance that he does not mention Jaguar D. Saul, the truth of Ohara. Doll tells us that she was formerly a subordinate of Saul, and it'll probably be a lot for her. It'll be a lot for a lot of people, me included. And just frankly, right, if you're a Marine and you're present in Egghead and you've seen Saturn for even just a moment, you know, you're already having doubts as to what exactly are you fighting for, you know? That has to be the case. I think Vegapunk's message basically breaks the world. I'm so excited about it. But anyway, this might be the last chance that we ever have of speculating the name of the ancient kingdom, guys. Like I said before, man, this is a bit too much for me, but you know, we gotta do it, right? One last hurrah. Very likely to be wrong, obviously. The first theory I ever made about the name was that it is Libertalia, the famous pirate kingdom paradise. This hasn't really felt right to me for a very long time. I'm not sure I can exactly explain why, but pretty much the only thing about the name that we have to go on is that revealing this name to the people is dangerous in some way. This name has to be in some form or capacity recognizable. So more recently, we've speculated that the ancient kingdom's name could be Water. The Kingdom of Water, related to Law's middle name and Water 7. I'm not going to explain this whole theory, I'll leave that as a link in the description. But I still do actually like this theory. The Kingdom of Water also could potentially be related to waterfaring peoples like pirates in a way that the government wouldn't be comfortable with. In essence, their greatest fear is knowledge that the pirate world can come together and form a powerful kingdom. They don't want this dream to exist. But I'm going to be straight up with you guys for the first time. My apologies in advance. When making videos on YouTube, it's important to have enough substance to the theory for it to be an actual experience to watch it. Water is a cool idea, but it isn't actually my #1 bet for the name of the ancient kingdom. What I think is most likely is a theory that would take approximately 30 seconds and then people would get it. The name of the ancient kingdom was One Piece. That's it. And when this information is revealed to the world, people will finally understand what the journey for One Piece actually is. The Gorosei immediately ordered Clover's assassination because they could not have that information out there. That the treasure isn't simply Roger's treasure, collected over 20 to 30 years of adventuring. No, it's the treasure of the most advanced kingdom which may have ever existed, collected over 100 years. A treasure so valuable that the world government tried to hide its very existence by erasing this history. Basically, One Piece is real, you know? So if we are placing bets right now, that's what my bet is on. And I can't wait to discover what the answer really is. But yeah, once again, this chapter was just monumental flames, leaving me begging for the next one. As always, I'm curious as to what you guys think, whether you know something from the chapter that I might have missed. Just share your thoughts. Remember to check out my book, The Booms. Links in the description if you guys happen to read it. Please leave a review. Let other people know what you thought about it. Like the video, subscribe, click the bell to be notified, join the squad, and as always, guys, have a wonderful day.